The wind was dry that evening, brushing across the plains like an invisible ghost whispering through the sagebrush, carrying the faint scent of rain that never came. The young farmer, Eli Turner, stood at the edge of his wheat field, hat low, eyes heavy with the weight of another day spent fighting the stubborn earth. He was a quiet man, the kind molded by hard seasons and harder silences. A man whose hands told stories of labor more honest than any preacher's word. The sun was folding itself behind the red hills, bleeding its light across the horizon when he first saw them. 3 figures walking slow from the desert, wrapped in blankets, faces streaked with dust and sorrow. They moved like spirits at first, shadows against the dying gold of the evening. Eli gripped his rifle out of instinct, but something in their posture, weary, broken and yet proud, made him hesitate. They stopped a few yards from his fence, their eyes meeting his, dark as the desert night, deep as something ancient. One of them, the eldest perhaps, stepped forward and spoke in a voice that trembled but carried an echo of fire. "We never touched a white man before," she said, her accent carving each word like it had to fight to be understood. Eli froze, unsure if it was fear, curiosity, or something nameless that moved in his chest. The wind pushed a strand of her black hair across her face, and for a long, quiet second, neither spoke. He had heard stories, the kind told around campfires, about Apache raids, burned cabins, and men who vanished into the canyon winds. But the 3 before him were not raiders. Their clothes were torn, feet bare, their eyes hollow from hunger. Eli could see the line between pride and desperation, thin as a hair on their faces. "You're far from your people," he finally said, voice steady but cautious. The eldest nodded, her sisters standing close behind her, one clutching the other's arm as if she might fall. "Our home was taken by soldiers," she whispered. "We have nowhere else." Her English was broken but clear enough to wound. Eli lowered his rifle. The war between whites and Apaches had ended in papers and treaties, but the hate still walked these lands like an unburied corpse. He knew harboring them could cost him his life if the wrong man found out. Yet he looked at them, 3 souls carved from a dying world, and something in him refused to turn away. "Come on," he muttered, more to himself than to them, pushing open the gate. They stepped inside his land, cautious as deer. That night, as rain finally came in soft, hesitant drops, the Apache sisters sat near the fire in his barn. Eli watched from a distance, arms folded, unsure what to make of them. They ate the bread he gave with quiet gratitude, every movement careful, eyes darting toward him whenever he shifted. The youngest, maybe 16, seemed both afraid and curious, glancing at him as though trying to understand how a man could look both strong and kind. The middle sister, whose face bore a faint scar along her jaw, said little but watched everything. And the eldest, her name he'd later learn was Naya, carried herself like a woman who had once been fierce, but now bore the quiet of someone who had lost too much. When she finally spoke again, her words came soft but edged with strength. "Why help us?" Eli didn't have a good answer. Maybe it was because the land itself seemed tired of blood. Maybe because he was lonely, living in silence too long. Or maybe because, deep down, he saw that their pain wasn't so different from his own. "You looked like you needed it," he said, poking at the fire. Days passed, and the rhythm of the ranch changed. He'd wake early, find the sisters already gathering water, mending fences or tending the small garden out back. They worked hard, without complaint and slowly. The silence between them softened. Naya began to smile faintly when he brought extra milk from the cow. The youngest laughed once when Eli tripped over a bucket, and that small sound felt like sunlight breaking through a storm. At night, when the crickets sang, they would share small stories of rivers in the desert, of the spirits that lived in the wind, of a world that once belonged to their people. Eli listened, his heart pulled by something he couldn't name. There was a strange comfort in their presence, the kind that fills the empty spaces of a lonely man's soul without asking permission. Still, he never crossed the invisible line of distance. He was careful, respectful, though every glance between them carried an unspoken current. One evening, as the moon rose silver over the plains, Naya approached him while he was mending a broken gate. "You work like you fight the land," she said quietly. Eli chuckled, wiping sweat from his brow. "Maybe I do." She studied him for a moment, her gaze steady. "You don't hate us?" she asked. The question hung heavy in the air. He set the hammer down, meeting her eyes. "Hate's a heavy thing to carry," he said. "I've carried enough." She nodded, as if she understood, and for a long while they just stood there, two souls from worlds that had been told to fear each other, finding peace in the silence. But peace in the West never lasted long. Word spread fast in those lands, carried by whiskey tongues and the clatter of hooves. One morning a neighbor rode up, Jed Coleman, a man whose grin was never without malice. "Heard you got company out here, Turner," he said, leaning on his saddle. "3 Apache women, is it true?" Eli's jaw tightened. "You hear too much, Jed." The man spat tobacco and laughed. "You're playing a dangerous game. Folks around here don't take kindly to redskins." Eli said nothing, just stared until Jed finally rode off, muttering curses under his breath. That night, Eli warned the sisters. "You may have to leave soon," he said, his voice low. Naya looked up, her face calm. "If we go, where do we go? The white man's land is wide. Our land is gone." Her words hit him like a blade. He wanted to promise them safety, but he couldn't lie. Not out here, where promises broke as easy as glass. Still, he couldn't let them go. Not yet. Something in him had changed. The man who once thought of the world in simple lines, good, bad white Indian, now saw shades of human sorrow. Each night he listened to the stories. Naya told of her people, the songs sung to the moon, the way her mother spoke to the earth before planting corn. He realized that kindness wasn't weakness, that love, even unspoken, even forbidden, was the only thing left worth holding on to in a land built on scars. And though they never touched, there was something in the way Naya looked at him, in the way her fingers brushed the doorway as he passed, that said more than words ever could. One morning, as dawn painted the hills in gold, Eli found the 3 sisters standing at the edge of his land, their faces turned toward the horizon. Naya spoke first. "We should go," she said softly. "Your people will come. We do not want your blood for ours." Eli felt a weight rise in his chest. "You don't have to," he began, but she only smiled, a sad, knowing smile. "We never touched a white man before," she said again, her voice trembling with emotion. "But your kindness touched us." And with that, they walked into the rising light, their figures fading into the land that had both given and taken everything from them. Eli stood there long after they disappeared, the wind carrying their scent, the memory of what could never be, and the quiet truth that maybe, just maybe, humanity wasn't buried after all beneath the dust and the war. As the camera fades on Eli's weathered face and the endless western horizon beyond him, a soft narration closes the scene, reminding every heart that even in a world built on division, sometimes a single act of kindness can heal more than history ever could.